All right, so let's talk about sound. Okay, so this is just kind of a review. We've already gone over this, but waves are both visual and auditory stimuli that occur in the form of waves. Duh. The wavelength is going to be the length of a wave from one peak to the next, and the amplitude, again, is the distance from the center line. So sound waves also travel in waves, just like the visual spectrum, and sound waves are the frequency is the number of waves that pass a given point in a time period. So the frequency of a sound wave is the pitch. A high frequency sound wave is going to be a high pitched noise, low frequency is going to be low pitched. The amplitude of a wave is correlated with the decibels, so higher amplitudes are associated with louder sounds. We have pretty discerning hearing, but once we get to 80 to 130 decibels, you can start to get hearing damage. And every 10 decibels is a tenfold increase in sound intensity. So kind of like how, the Richter scale is a tenfold increase in the magnitude of an earthquake, same thing. So 0 would be silence, 10 is like breathing, 20 is rustling leaves, 30 is whispering, right? Normal conversation is 60. Once you get up to like city traffic, headphone music, rock concert, airplanes, shotgun, that gets sent into like the damage zone. Okay, so this is a picture of an ear. We're going to learn about what each of those things are. So the outer ear. The outer ear is going to collect sound waves and channel them into the ear. So if you ever thought, wow, our ear really looks like a funnel, that's what it's doing. So the pinna is the visible part of our ear, this outer lobe. That funnels the sound into your auditory canal. Okay, so that's where the sound goes. It's about 2 to 3 centimeters long. It transmits sound, and it amplifies low sounds, kind of like your own natural hearing aid. That sound is going to go in and hit the tympanic membrane, also known as your eardrum, which is going to vibrate from pressure from the sound wave. So that's your outer ear. Then you get to your middle ear. The middle ear is going to take the vibrations from your eardrum and pass them on to the cochlea. So the way that we do this is unnecessarily complicated. You have these things called ossicles. Your ossicles are these 3 tiny bones right here that transmit those vibrations. So you've got the hammer, anvil, and stirrup, also known as the malleus, incus, and stapes. You can kind of see it. Neither of those pictures are very good, but basically they're named for what they look like. Like you can see that looks like a stirrup. Okay, you can see it better here, I guess. Hammer, anvil, stirrup. That passes on to the inner ear, which contains these things. The cochlea is the most important part of the inner ear because that is a fluid-filled tube. Sound waves that pass through the fluid are going to trigger nerve impulses because they're waving these hair cells. Okay? You also have these things called semicircular canals, which are filled with fluid, and those help with balance. Okay, so in the cochlea, when the cochlea begins to move, the hair cells are stimulated, and when they become stimulated, they generate neural impulses. Now, as we get older, we become worse at picking up high-pitched sounds because our hair cells are not as responsive, or they're dead. So there's a couple of different types of hearing loss that you can experience. The first is called sensorineural. This hearing loss is caused by damage to the cochlea or to the auditory nerve. So basically, your ear can collect sound, but it's not being transmitted to your brain. And that's the most common form of hearing loss. It's also called nerve deafness. So, one thing that can cause that is prolonged exposure above 85 decibels. So if you're like always on the subway or work in a rock band or something like that. Possible causes, illness, drugs, genetics, aging, blow to the head, or too much loud noise. The less common is conduction hearing loss. So that means that there's a problem actually getting the sound energy to the cochlea. Those things can be earwax blockage, which collects nasty bacteria in your ears, if you have a hole in the eardrum, which can happen to people, if you have fluid in the middle ear, which can be because of allergies, or if there's a problem with the formation of the outer or middle ear. Fun fact, I have been deemed to be a person that produces a lot of earwax, and so every so often I have to get my earwax cleaned out because I can't hear, and that is conduction hearing loss. Another really terrible type of hearing issues is called tinnitus. Tinnitus scares me, honestly. It is a phantom sound of ringing in the ears when no sound is present. So you know how if you go to a loud concert or movie theater and then when you get home and you're trying to go to bed, there's ringing in your ears? That's what tinnitus is, but all the time, and it won't go away. So that can be chronic. Another type of hearing loss is congenital deafness, which is being born without hearing. So this little puppy right here is Rennie. She is a dog that my boyfriend's mom adopted last year during quarantine. She's adorable, but she is deaf and she can't hear anything. And so we've had to teach her basically doggy sign language. And she's not very good at listening, quote unquote, listening to that, but she's super cute. Okay, so if you have a certain type of deafness, specifically relating to the cochlea or the auditory nerve, you can get something called a cochlear implant. And this is a device that converts sounds into electrical signals and stimulates the auditory nerve for you so that you can hear. So it kind of looks like this. Perceiving sound. Like we said before, loudness is a result of the amplitude of something. So imagine that these are hair cells, right? And these are different types of sounds, right? So these ones are the same sound, these ones are higher frequency, low frequency. Basically, we interpret loudness from the number of activated hair cells, not the intensity of the activation. And some hair cells can lose their sensitivity to soft sounds, but react the same to loud sounds. It all kind of depends. Hearing different pitches, we're not really sure. There are two theories. One is place theory. In hearing, the theory that links the pitch we hear with the place in the cochlea's membrane where it is stimulated. So maybe we can hear high-pitched sounds because of where it stimulates the cochlea. The frequency theory says that in hearing, this theory says the rate of nerve impulses matches the frequency of a tone, allowing us to sense pitch, which explains how we can hear low-pitched sounds. Okay, we have the fun natural gift of having two ears. So we have this thing called stereophonic hearing. Stereo basically means on both sides. Like if you're listening to a stereo system, it's surround sound. So stereophonic hearing allows us to hear in 3D and locate where the sound is coming from. If you're listening with one ear, like we did in our little activity, that's monaural, or one-eared hearing. Binaural is two-eared hearing. Dichotic listening. So this is a test that psychologists give to people basically to figure out how their hearing is on both sides and if they can use selective attention while hearing. So the auditory process involves listening with both ears to two different things, right? Two different stimuli. So this guy on one side, he's getting this thing about a horse, on the other about Abraham Lincoln, and he's supposed to focus on one. If you can do this, it means you have really good selective attention in your hearing. It's also really hard. Okay, so I guess that's all I got for that.